Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Today, I am going to kick off my Chaosium week here on the channel by taking a first look at the Smoking Ruin and other stories for RuneQuest from Chaosium Inc. This is written by Christopher Klug, Steve Perrin, Jeff Richard, Greg Stafford, and Jason Durall. The 192-page hardcover with PDF carries an MSRP of $37.99. You get that PDF if you order from Chaosium Inc. or one of their partners, or you can grab just the PDF alone over at DriveThruRPG for $18.99. All that said, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got RuneQuest, The Smoking Ruin, and other stories. A couple of things I want to mention before we dive on in. First of all, my friends over at Chaosium Inc. were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this coverage with you. These days, it's very, very important that you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of the Smoking Ruin and other stories, but I do want to give you a very good feel for what's in this adventure collection. Lastly, it's an adventure collection. So if you are a player, granted, yes, this came out a few years ago, but if you are a RuneQuest player and your game master has picked this up, maybe they haven't run it yet, or maybe they've just picked up RuneQuest and maybe they'll run this sometime in the future, definitely recommend tune out now because you don't want any of the surprises ruined simply because you watched this preview of the Smoking Ruin and other stories. Now, of course, having said that, let your game master know about this video. If they're running RuneQuest and they haven't run this, maybe they want to take a peek, get an idea of what's inside this book. All right, let's get the shrink wrap off. We'll take a look at the back here. I'm not going to read everything from the back. I'll read a little bit. The Smoking Ruin and Other Stories contains ready-to-play scenarios for RuneQuest, taking your adventurers across the untamed South Wilds, a region filled with reclusive villagers, ancient standing stones, beast folk, troll spirits, undead, wolf brothers, dinosaurs, monstrous mercenary companies, living trees, river spirits, and even more spectacular perils and wonders. And of course, discusses what's in the book. But we're going to dive on in and take a peek. So I have to mention, my friends over at Chaosium Inc. had touched base with me, and I essentially let them know what I did not have for the current edition of RuneQuest, as well as the 7th edition of Call of Cthulhu, and incredibly enough, they sent all of it. So I just recently received 9 books from Chaosium Inc., and we are going to be taking a look at all 9 of them during Chaosium Week. So very, very cool. I thought that was really, really nice of the Chaosium Inc. gang to do that for me. So looks like we're going to get a bit of a gazetteer to start off with, and then we'll probably dive on into the adventures. So it says, The Smoking Ruin and Other Stories is the first collection of ready-to-play adventures for RuneQuest role-playing in Glorantha. Each of these adventures has been crafted to present an exquisitely Gloranthian experience. Here you will find no ancient dungeons filled with monsters, marauding dragons in need of defeat, or nefarious wizards with dreams of necromantic empires. Instead, adventurers must contend with troll spirits, trollkin, Talmori wolf brothers, dinosaurs, chimeric mercenary companies, living trees, surly river spirits, and worse. So we've got the South Wilds. It's going to start off right here. That looks to be our gazetteer. Then we have the Wild Temple. So it appears that that might be a site. The Smoking Ruin, which is an adventure. Then we've got The Lost Valley, which might be another gazetteer. And then we've got Arvanton's Tower. That's another adventure. And The Grove of Green Rock, which appears to be another locale. And maybe there's an adventure with that as well. So it looks like we've got quite a bit cooking in this adventure collection. Now, of course, please keep in mind, I am going to be skipping pages here. And although I know nothing about these adventures, we're probably going to stumble across some spoilers just simply because I'm paging through. So if you're not overly familiar with RuneQuest, it is an amazing fantasy role-playing game. It is very unique. It's, in my opinion, is very special. The late, great Greg Stafford devoted about 40 years of his life to this setting, and all that care, all that detail, all that love really comes through in RuneQuest. It really, really does. It's a Bronze Age fantasy role-playing game. It is essentially built on basic role-playing, which originated with the first RuneQuest edition, which is percentile-based. It's very intuitive as far as learning the mechanics, because you'll have various different skills. You're rolling percentile dice. You have a skill score. You have to roll equal to or less than in order to succeed. And there's a little more to that. There's modifiers and critical hits and things along those lines. But still, pretty easy for players to wrap their heads around, even if they are not overly familiar with fantasy role-playing games. So important to keep that in mind. Another thing I love about RuneQuest is that combat is extremely deadly. Players who just think they're going to barge in and fight and kill everything that stands in their way will find that their adventuring careers will come to a screeching halt as they lie down and take a nice dirt nap. There is also that there are no classes in RuneQuest, so you can play the sort of character you want to play. Every player can have access to magic, so you don't have characters who are specifically only magic users. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have a character who mainly focuses on rune magic, of course. Now, currently, there is a series of the Pantheons of RuneQuest that is coming out from Chaosium. They are in the midst of it. They have released the first 4 entries. 2 of them are actually Pantheon books. And wow, they are just fantastic. I have reviewed the 2 Pantheon books. I will be reviewing the mythology book very shortly. But the 2 Pantheon books, I scored 10 out of 10. They are that good. All right, so we're just taking a look at the various different adventures here. This is the Smoking Ruin. So, of course, I've been sitting here talking. Let's get a little synopsis of what's going on here. For the Smoking Ruin, the adventurers start in Clearwine Fort and must travel overland to the Smoking Ruin, located west of the Dragon Spine in the southwest corner of the Grazelands. The Smoking Ruin are an infamous location, rumored to be filled with dangerous, malevolent troll spirits. They must interact with those spirits, and the artifacts may be forgotten altogether or left for another trip. Little do the adventurers know, however, that there is an unexpected cost to the journey. Sweet. So this looks like this is a fairly long adventure. Where do we kick it off? Page 35. And we are still in the Smoking Ruin adventure at page 70. But as you can see, just the presentation of this book is top-notch. I will tell you, the paper stock, very nice. Now, granted, it's not as thick as what we see from, say, Free League Publishing, but it's certainly not as thin as we come to expect from, say, 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons books. Come, dance with one eye. Sweet. Wow, this has got a lot cooking in this adventure. I think we're getting close to the finale. Yes, because now we're going to get into some of our stat blocks. Or maybe it looks like maybe we've got stat blocks at the end of each of the acts. All right, we've got a bookmark. Aha, now we get the Lost Valley. Seemingly forgotten by the rest of Dragon Pass, the area known as the Lost Valley has its own unique history, untouched by many of the grand events that transpired around it. As with the other areas described in this book, the Lost Valley contains ample opportunities for adventure, with many dangerous regions to explore and potential exploits to be had. Though the civilized parts can be idyllic, it is, in fact, a precarious piece, hostile beings sharing the valley with its human inhabitants. I'm going to take a guess, just from the title of this adventure, this is where we're going to see those dinosaurs. As far as the setting, as I had mentioned, this is kind of a Bronze Age fantasy role-playing game. Relatively gritty. It is not grimdark by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a fairly gritty setting. And you'll come to find adventuring in the world of Glorantha is very, very different than any other fantasy role-playing game. This is not an epic fantasy world, although there's all your standard races. And in fact, we've even got the duck folk. I forget off the top of my head the name of that species, but we've got all different monsters, but primarily you're going to find this is a world that is mainly inhabited by humans. So they do make up the vast majority of these species that you'll encounter. But there is an actual sense of place with Glorantha that other fantasy role-playing games, outside of a few, say like Pathfinder 2nd Edition, have a hard time matching, because the world of Glorantha, there's so much material out there over the decades that has been published. This comes across as a living, breathing place. It is so cool. Just kind of taking a peek through here. This is the Grove of Green Rock. This looks like another location that the player characters are off exploring. Oh, there you go. It's an underground temple. So there's a night fight. As I had mentioned, this is the first adventure collection that was published for RuneQuest. So if you're kind of on the fence about RuneQuest and you've never really delved into it or anything along those lines, my recommendation is check out the starter set. It is one of the most phenomenal role-playing game starter sets you will ever encounter. I have a review of it. You can check out that video, get a much closer look into it. It's got adventures. It's got everything you need to get started in the world of Glorantha, and it's got a very, very friendly price, especially if you were going to pick it up in PDF. I think off the top of my head, I think it's $29.95 for this box starter set. And once again, it has everything you need to get started in RuneQuest. And I think as a PDF, it's $14.95 over on DriveThruRPG. I actually really like that. That is very cool. This looks really intriguing. But as I had mentioned previously, RuneQuest adventures are really its own thing, very unlike other fantasy role-playing games. So we got some handouts, we've got our index, and that is a look inside RuneQuest the Smoking Ruin and other stories from my friends over at Chaosium Inc. Of course, I will have a review of RuneQuest, the Smoking Ruin, and other stories in the not too distant future, so stay tuned. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when I share videos such as this first look, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more that you will not find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks for watching, and I certainly hope you'll continue to visit all during Chaosium Week, as I've got plenty of more content to bring you. All right, thanks for tuning in, and until I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.